Before we get into the episode, I am thrilled to announce that the EntreMD Business School is open for enrollment. The EntreMD Business School is the only school of its kind for physicians who want to build 6, 7, and multiple 7-figure businesses. Over the last 2 years, we have had hundreds of doctors go through the school with unbelievable results. Some of them run brands, some of them run private practices, some of them are coaches, some have other kinds of service-based businesses or product-based businesses. And we've had people come in and cross the 6-figure milestone, cross the 7-figure milestone, cross the multiple 7-figure milestone. You will be in a place where you'll get the coaching, the community, the accountability that you need to thrive as an entrepreneur, especially in the times that we're in. So maybe you've been following me for a while. Maybe you've been getting so much out of the EntreMD podcast and you've been wondering, how can I work with Dr. Una and the community more? Well, this is your chance. Come join us in the EntreMD Business School. It is application only. So go to entremd.com/business to turn in your application. I cannot tell you how many doctors have made statements like this. I recovered my investment in the first week. I recovered my investment in my bank account in the first 90 days. This is the best investment I've made in myself ever. I want you to have that kind of story, not just a story of building a great business that serves a lot and earns a lot, but having a business that gives you the freedom to live life on your terms. So don't wait any longer. entremd.com/business. And now for the episode. Hi, docs. Welcome to the EntreMD podcast, where it's all about helping amazing physicians just like you embrace entrepreneurship so you can have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on your terms. I'm your host, Dr. Una. Well, hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the EntreMD podcast. I am so excited about what we're going to be talking about because we are going to be talking about 3 things you do, maybe even every day, right, that really frustrate your team. And the reason why this is so important is because as entrepreneurs, part of the reason why we get into entrepreneurship is for the sake of freedom, right? And there is no such thing as freedom without a team. There's no such thing as building a business that is scalable and is sellable without a team. And so it's part of the hardest work you'll do as an entrepreneur, but it is the work with the highest ROI. So we want to pay attention to that. Okay. Now, before we do that, I want to read a review, and this is from Bookie Reader. Okay. And this person says, thank you, and leaves those 5 beautiful stars that I love. And says, your podcast was recommended to me by another physician friend who is becoming their own boss, which, oh my goodness, that makes me so excited. I never imagined being my own boss, and I'm learning a new way to view my skill set and my potential. Thank you for sharing your talent and your gift. So, Dr. Bookie Reader, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that review. And I'm super excited about you and what you're going to create for yourself, and the fact that you see your skill set in a different way, you see your potential in a different way. Super excited for your friend who referred this, because they've made their own decision. They started their journey. And also because there's such a critical part of the Calvary. They shared the podcast, right? So thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you for leaving that review. It really does help us get the word out. I appreciate it. And your review is going to help so many other people have the same experience you're having. Okay. Totally rooting for you. Wish I knew you by name so I could shout you out. And for you listening, if you haven't shared the podcast recently, this is one of those that you want to take a screenshot of, post to social media, tag me, #EntreMD, text it to your friends. Every time you hear a physician complain about medicine, that is a trigger and a reminder to share this podcast with them. Every time you hear a physician complain about their business, that is a trigger saying, hey, I need to share the EntreMD podcast with this person, right? Every time someone says, oh my goodness, I'm so alone as an entrepreneur, that is a perfect time to share the podcast. So I want you thinking in those terms. And I really, really, really am grateful that you're doing that. You're a part of the Calvary. You're part of the team making this possible. Okay. All right. Because we are going to have a brand new time in medicine. It's coming. We are just looking for the early adopters who are going to set the stage. And, like Dr. Bookie Reader's friend who set an example that'll make people go like, I didn't realize that was possible, right? That's how the movement works. Okay. All right. So 3 things you do that frustrate your team. Okay, frustrate your team. And the truth of the matter is, yes, if you sit with a bunch of entrepreneurs, you're going to hear some things about some really amazing team members, but you are going to hear a lot of complaining about team members. And I talked with a lady who really helped me think about this in a completely different way, because she was like, yeah, when I see a team that is not performing, the first person I look at is the leader, right? I think it was Brian Tracy who was like, yeah, stop complaining about your team. You hire them. So there's something wrong with your ability to hire, build culture, and all of that stuff. And if you think about the MBA, right? If a team is not doing well, they don't fire the team, right? Like if a team, they did their work, they showed up, they made it to the playoffs, or didn't make it to the playoffs, but didn't make it to the finals, seems like they're not living out their potential and all of that stuff. They don't fire the team. They fire the coach. And so I'm not saying that to say every single thing is your fault, but you're the leader, it's your company, right? You hire the people, and all of these things. So, we want to become better at hiring. We want to become better at building culture. We want to become better at leading our teams. And that's what this is about. Again, super important, because a team it's a rite of passage for where we're trying to go. Okay. All right. So the very first way we frustrate them is by unclear expectations. And this may be no expectations. This may be unclear expectations, maybe vague expectations, but they actually don't know what it means to score. They don't know what it means. Like when you think of, oh my goodness, this person did a fabulous job, they don't know what that means to you. Okay. And so there is this thing of, we hire somebody, we look at their past experience, we look at their education, and we're like, oh my goodness, this person is perfect for the job. But you must remember that every company is different. You must understand that every leader is different. You must understand your vision is different. And so even though somebody may be very well educated and somebody may have a lot of experience, it doesn't mean that you can plug and play, right? They need to know. They're coming in like, oh my goodness, I got this job. They just told their friends, I got this job. It's amazing. I think I have a career path there, and I'm looking forward to working with this person. I've always admired him as a leader. They want to do a good job, but they need to know what a good job is. And as entrepreneurs, this is some of the work that a lot of times we don't like to do, like to clearly define what that is. So you're hiring a physician. What is a good job? You see 20 patients a day. All calls are returned at the end of the day. You're billing and you're coding all that, and your notes are completed within 24 hours. You lead your team, right, of your MAs and, front desk and all of those kind of things. You advocate for well-checked visits. You do your part to fill your panel and all of these things. Like those are things that are clear. Those are things that you can put numbers behind. And so that when they score, they know they scored, when they know what to do a good job, and so that's the example of, if you're in private practice, but if you were a coach, for instance, and you had somebody on your sales team and the person was a social seller, and you're like, okay, I need 2 posts to go out on social media every day. I need new contacts with, X number of people, X number of connections are made. I need X number of follow-ups, right? With people who maybe we've gotten on sales calls with before. I need an email to go out once a week. I need these. Those can be measured. Those are clear. When somebody comes in and they work for 8 hours, they can actually, at the end of the day, smile and say, I did it. Like I'm a straight A employee. I got it all done. It has to be clear. It can't be vague. It can't be, it can't be so high level that it's philosophical. Like they need to know. So I want you to think about it like your business was a basketball game, right? They're not just going around and dribbling and doing all these things. There is a definite goal. There is a basket. The ball needs to get into that basket more times than your opponent is able to get the ball into their basket, right? Like, so if you think about it in those terms, and there's a scoreboard, so they know when they're winning, they know when they're ahead, they know when they need to troubleshoot, they know when they need to ask for help, they know when they need a timeout, right? Because it's so clear. Okay, so I want you to think about this, think about the roles in your company. And if you are at the stage where your company, where you're the employee, you're the only employee, you're the solopreneur, I want you to think of lead yourself that way too, right? Like, what is a good job? What does that look like? What do I check off? The clearer it is, the better everything is, the better you perform. It takes away a lot of the stress because you're not trying to do all the things. You're not trying to do everything. Of course, there are things not on the list you have to do to get to the things on the list, but you're very clear. And so you can walk away every day. You can walk away every week and actually beat yourself on your chest and say, man, I did a great job, right? When we lead that way, it is, it makes their job so much easier. The more vague it is, the harder it is for them, because that's like playing a basketball game and you've been in it for 90 minutes. You don't know if you've scored. You don't even know if you've scored, right? You don't know what scoring means. You're just like here, kind of dribble the ball and go with the flow, see what everybody's doing and kind of do that too, right? So we really frustrate our teams when we do that. The second thing we do to frustrate our team is poor communication, right? Poor communication. Now, I know, again, there is this expectation. They have a good education. They have a lot of experience. It's a plug and play. And a lot of times it's not a plug and play. Not a lot of times you can't build a great team on plug and play. And so there needs to be some kind of cadence to communication because, for instance, your vision, you think about how long as an entrepreneur you sat with your vision before you owned it, before you knew it, before you understood it. So at orientation, talking about the vision once is not going to help them understand the vision, right? There needs to be conversation around that. There needs to be conversation around the expectation, because even though you map it out, even though you have a conversation about it, the one time is not enough, right? You're going to need to talk about it. You're going to need to see where there are hangups. You're going to need to help them through the hangups. You're going to need to train. You're going to need to coach and all of those kind of things, right? So you're going to need to do that. There is some communication that needs to happen. Well, how about feedback, right? So there's the performance, and the feedback is two ways, right? Part of it is, oh my goodness, you did this. You did it so well. This is amazing. Good job. The other part of it is, and sometimes that's the part we shy away from is so you see this piece, we don't quite do this well. This is the way this needs to happen. And so we need to do both, right? Feedback is the breakfast of champions. We need to be able to give correction and we need to be able to give praise. And so the more communication there is, the more they understand your vision, the more they can carry out your vision, the clearer they are on their expectations, the better they can do on their job. With the correction feedback, the better, they just become really, really good at what they do. And when you set the stage for communication, the other thing is, of course, is two ways, right? And so if there are areas where their struggles, or area where they don't understand, or areas where their things get in their way so they can't perform, those conversations can come up. Those conversations can come up so that you can, so you can have the team that you want, right? So they're not frustrated, they're not confused, they're not unclear, they don't feel unsupported, and all of those kind of things. Okay, so that's the second thing is poor communication. Okay, the third thing is, if you're like me and at my core, I'm phlegmatic. And so I'm not into conflict. I've learned to embrace conflict. As an entrepreneur, there's no way around that. There's going to be conflict. But at my natural bent is, let sleeping dogs lie. So the third one, if you're like me, you really get this one, is sanctioned incompetence. Okay. Now, this is what sanctioned incompetence means. It means you have a team. So of course, this is more than one team member. And you have somebody on the team who is not pulling their weight, who is not getting the job done, either because they've decided they're not going to do the job, or they just can't. They're not skilled enough. They don't have the mental toughness they're just underperforming. And maybe you've even tried to say, okay, let's work at this, you've tried to coach them and all of those kind of things, and it's just going nowhere. But you are afraid of dehiring. You are afraid of holding them accountable. Maybe you just don't want to be bothered by it. And you allow the incompetence to stay. Okay. This is one where I'm probably like, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my goodness, Dr. Una, you are in my head. Send me a DM. Say, oh, Dr. Una, you're in my head. But I'm making a commitment. I'm going to work on it. Okay. Now, when you do that, you are sending a message company wide that we tolerate mediocrity. We tolerate incompetence. We say we have a value for excellence and we have high standards, but we honestly don't. And what that will do, the problem with that is it erodes your culture, right? Because you cannot have your high flyers will do one of two things. The high flyers that are kind of, they may start lowering their standards because they're like, clearly, they don't care about excellence here. So I'm just going to do the bare minimum, whatever. Your real high flyers will look for a different environment. They cannot thrive in that environment. They cannot thrive in an environment of sanctioned incompetence. They cannot. And so as a leader, you have a team of A players. One of the things you can do to massively frustrate them is allow incompetence. Okay. Now, when there's incompetence, it doesn't always mean you're dehiring, because there are a number of things you have to do before you dehire, right? And so you're looking at holding people accountable. You are looking at setting the bar. You're looking at training. You're looking at coaching, providing resources, all of those kind of things. So it's obvious that this is not tolerated. We are working on fixing it, right? So you're holding them accountable. And if it comes to a time when they need to be dehired, then they're dehired. But the thing is that it sends a message across your company that we will support you in every way we can. We know you're an A player. We know you're an A player. We want to support you. We want this to be an environment where you thrive, but this is not a place for incompetence, right? And so when there's sanctioned incompetence, it really, really, really hurts your A players. It really frustrates your A players. And if you want to build a dream team, then you want to build a team where incompetence does not have a place. And of course, with leadership, every leader starts by leading themselves. And so that means that if you are the person who, as the leader, you need to set the example. You need to be competent. You need to be seen to have a great work ethic, and you're continue to learn, and you continue to hold yourself to high standards and all of those kind of things. People need to see that, right? Because you're setting the bar. So you're not going to be the person who is incompetent and trying to address someone else who's incompetent. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you're going to need to do that. I'm not talking about perfection. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about you showing up, you doing the work, you leading the way, you acting the way you want your employees to act, right? Okay. So these are three things, and they're things that you can start working on today. Okay. So clarify your expectations. It does not need to be perfect. It needs to be clear. Clarify your expectations. Okay. Work on your communication, set a cadence. Maybe you don't have any meetings at all. Maybe this is time to start setting meetings, set up trainings, all of those kind of things. Third is address the sanction and competence. So you start by, clarifying the expectations, communicating, coaching them up, training them up, holding them accountable to the standards. And if it comes to that point where dehiring is your only option, then take the bold step to dehire. Not even so much so it's the main reason is because of what it will do to your company culture and what it will do to your A players, right? Okay. So I want you to take the time. This is a good one to workshop. This is a good one. We talk about the EntreMD accountability pods. And so if you have a group of friends, 5 or 6 people, where you guys listen to the episodes and kind of workshop it, this is a good one to workshop and just make some few decisions like, okay, I'm going to do this, maybe 3 to 5 things, and you go execute it. It will bring so much change to your company, and your company will be so much better for it. Your team will be so much better, and you'll be on your way to building that dream team that will help you build your dream business, right? Okay. So that's what I have for you. And, really, if you think about the discomfort of this, but you also think about the fact that this is the pathway to the business of my dreams, it makes it so much easier to handle it. So go do this, because I want to see us physicians building those businesses that create financial and time freedom for us. But in the process of doing it, we're also building these teams where people are like, my goodness, the best time in my professional career was working with you. Like, imagine that, right? Where you help them develop, you help them become the best version of themselves. You help them produce at a level they've never produced before. And that is like beyond amazing. So go share this episode with another doc, and I will see you on the next episode of the EntreMD podcast. Hey, if you love listening to the EntreMD podcast, I want to invite you to join EntreMD On Demand. It is my signature subscription program that gives you access to a library of business courses designed to help you do one thing as a physician entrepreneur, and that is to thrive. Just head out to entremd.com/on demand, and I'd love to have you join us. See you on the inside.